This is In the Arena. And now your host, Joe Paolino.
It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. Good morning, and I'm Joe Paolino, and welcome to In the Arena. Today we have a man who's been in the national and international arena, our own very good friend, Senator Jack Reed. Senator,
Joe,
thanks for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're going through a lot of stuff in Washington. I mean, you are not the type of senator that's always rushing to get on the TV. You do your work, you're very diligent, you're very smart, you're doing great things. But it seems like Trump is keeping you busy.
Well, he's keeping everyone busy, and it's not just the president, it's a world situation. We have conflict in Syria and Iraq, conflict in Afghanistan. He's taken a different course than other presidents with respect to NATO. We have a serious issue in North Korea. Then there's always the international economic issues. So with the British leaving the European Union, that's going to get more complicated with each day. So this is a time of incredible challenge. And the president has a style of constant change and both positions and constant comment to the social media. That complicates things also.
When I was ambassador to Malta, we had to investigate Gaddafi and the Pan Am 103 bombing. So we're talking the mid-1990s. And I remember I would always have to criticize Gaddafi for being a terrorist. And one day, the head of the Labour Party in Malta called me up on a Sunday. He said, "I need to come see you." I said, "Well, you just got back from meeting my good friend Gaddafi." He said, "That's why I want to see you." So he came over to the house and we chatted. He said, he's upset with you because you've been too critical of Gaddafi and you have to tone it down. And I said, he's a terrorist, he killed Americans, and I went on with the American line and what we actually believe. And he said, "You know, Mr. Ambassador, that's what you and your country don't understand. After Gaddafi, you're going to get fundamentalism is going to end up taking over Libya. And you're going to have a situation in Libya far worse than what you have today with Gaddafi." And I didn't know what he meant until years later, and we're seeing things happen. So when we have these crazy people running their country, are we better off with them or what's going to follow, which is the unknown?
Well, I don't think you're better off with dictators like Gaddafi, who oppress their people as much as they complicate the international situation. And in fact, there was a popular revolt against Gaddafi. That's what triggered eventually NATO involvement and our involvement. But it really was, they were frankly fed up with his rule, and they started to revolt. What happened was, and this is one of the complicating factors, is after he left the scene, it was very difficult to put together a coherent government. There's basically two governments in Libya now, and in that space, terrorists will flock because of the lack of governmental capacity, control, law and order. We've seen that in places, particularly Iraq, after our invasion and the consequences.
So we're better off today without Gaddafi and without Saddam Hussein,
well,
or would we have been better off if they were still there?
Well, I think in the Gaddafi situation, that was a result of a popular uprising that later was supported by international forces. In the situation in Iraq, that was a conscious decision of the Bush administration, which I opposed, and I think that was an error because Saddam Hussein was not a decent human being. But what happened is we triggered these forces of disarray and disruption. We also gave the Iranians an entree through Iraq into Syria and all the way to the Mediterranean. And we basically found ourselves bogged down, and we still have forces. I was in Iraq about 2 weeks ago, and we still have advisors there that are helping the Iraqi forces. So I think that was a strategic error, which has not benefited us and probably has accelerated some of the other changes in the region.
Why should we be concerned about Putin? What does Putin want to do to us in America that we should be afraid of?
Well, first of all, he interfere directly in our elections.
Totally.
Without question, except by the president. That's one of the unusual things about the president.
Well, help get him elected. That's why he doesn't want to admit it.
But it's his intelligence agencies, everyone has concluded with very specific evidence, very credible evidence, that there was direct involvement by the Russians at Putin's order. So he has not just done it in the United States, in France, in those elections. Germany, they're having elections, and there's concerns that it's happening there. So first, there's an attempt by Putin to undermine our democracy, which is critical to this country, to the essence of the country. Then there's just been reports of intrusions into our electrical grid systems, so this whole cyber activity. In addition, he, as you know, took over the Crimea from the Ukraine. He's been supporting an undeclared war against the Ukrainian government for several years now. He's threatening the Baltics. He is also in violation of the Intermediate Nuclear Force Agreement by the types of weapon systems he's deploying. So all this is adding up to a state that is trying to essentially erase the end of the Cold War and replace it with a dominance in Eastern Europe.
Do you think Putin would like to try to end capitalism in the United States and take over our government in any way, like he's done in the Baltics and the Ukraine, and get that involved with the United States? I'm trying to it seems that the Trump people don't see Putin as a threat.
Well, some do. I mean, and when you talk to the
I'm talking about some of the electorate.
Yes. No, he is a threat, but he wants to advance Russian interests, and he thinks if he can cause confusion and instability in the United States, I don't think he had any grand plans to disrupt the world economy. I think, though, what he'd like to do is see us so preoccupied with internal problems, so unwilling to help our allies in Europe, that he could effectively reassert control in Ukraine, in Eastern Europe. You know, the Poles are particularly concerned about the potential activities to reestablish sort of not a physical presence, but basically dominate their economies and dominate their countries and control who is not elected. That's his immediate goal. And it's something I think we have to collectively resist, not just the United States, but the European community, the international community.
Who would have been better for us to work with, Gorbachev or Putin?
Well, I think Gorbachev was a much more sensible individual who basically tried very much to reach an understanding with the world community, and made personal sacrifices and political sacrifices to try to turn Russia away from their path of confrontation to one of cooperation. Putin, exactly the opposite. I mean, he's an old KGB agent. He was in Germany working as a spy. He hasn't forgotten that, and he's basically said publicly the greatest tragedy of recent history is the fact that the Soviet Union collapsed. So he would like to see not a new Soviet Union, but a new Russia that has the same influence in Eastern Europe, particularly and worldwide, as the Soviet Union.
Domestically, health care, Obamacare, when it was put in place, I was listening the other day to one of the cable shows saying it's not exactly what Obama wanted, but it was what he could get past at that time. You always knew that you had to continue to reform it. They want to get rid of it. What's going to happen to 23 million Americans?
It's going to be devastating.
Into the budget, too.
I think you're exactly right, Joe. It's for 20-plus Americans, million Americans, they'll lose their health coverage. The way it's being written, and it's being redrafted constantly, if you have a pre-existing condition, it'll be virtually impossible to get coverage. I was in a hardware store, and a young man came up to me. His son has MS. He said, I've got employee coverage insurance, but if they take away or reestablish the lifetime limits on how much a company will pay, my son won't get the care he needs throughout his life. So those are the real issues that face the American public now. We can make improvements in the Affordable Care Act, and we should, but to abandon it is to lose, basically take away coverage from 20-plus million people. In addition, the states will see an initial impact because of Medicaid, and most of our Medicaid funds goes to nursing homes. And so you'll have a population of seniors that will face increases in their costs. Some won't even be able to get the care they need. And not only that, as a former mayor of Providence, Medicaid spending goes directly to school systems. I think this year Providence got $4 million in Medicaid funding for disabled students. If that goes away, how does a local community, any local community in Rhode Island, make up the difference?
It's going to be devastating. Senator, it seems that when the Democrats wanted to get Obamacare, not one Republican wanted to help. You had to do it on your own. And now it appears with what the Republicans are talking about, not one Democrat wants to help them. What would happen if the moderates in both parties sat down? Could they develop a good plan if they did it together?
I think they could, and I think it would be an improvement over what the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare.
I mean, you have some grown-ups. You're one of them in the Senate.
Well, you're seeing some of my colleagues, like Senator Collins of Maine, who's made it very clear she's not happy with what the president is proposing, what the House passed. You've got others, and in fact, some of my conservative colleagues are objecting to it for completely different reasons. But moderates like Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and others are saying, listen, we can find a better way. I hope we can do that. I hope we can go ahead and stop this repeal and replace and go to a let's fix it mode and do it on a bipartisan basis.
Is it fixable?
Indeed it is. What we've seen here in Rhode Island particularly has been a program that has significantly decreased the number of uninsured people. I think we're way down to about 4%. We've seen health care costs nationally lower than even we thought they'd be. Now they're still significant, but they're coming down faster than we thought they could be. You're seeing more access. You're seeing people with pre-existing conditions getting insurance where they couldn't before. And I think you're also seeing in longer term that as we provide health care to people, they will be healthier, and therefore when they get to Medicare, they won't need some of the services that we provide automatically today. So by and large, it's been here particularly successful. Our rates have been, stable, and in fact, this week I think Neighborhood Health put in an increase of 5%. Blue Cross is putting in an increase.
13%, isn't it?
They are, and part of that is because what the president is proposing of pulling back on the cost subsidies that we paid for those individuals who are under some Blue Cross coverage and other coverage. And if you pull those back, then the insurance companies will have to make up the difference. The uncertainty is causing them to ask for higher rates. And that's something that we've been doing for the last several years. And I wish, in fact, I was sponsoring legislation so that we can do it, so that insurance companies can lower their rates and provide certainty in terms of their customers that they're going to get affordable rates.
One thing that's always separate, going on to another subject, economic development. What I see in downtown Providence a lot is one of the key things that companies from out of state look at. How far is their office going to be from the train station? Mm-hmm. And more, especially the millennials, are taking the train more than ever before. And I say to myself, just think if we ever had high-speed rail, true high-speed rail, where you could make it to New York in an hour and 20 minutes instead of 3 hours, what that would do for commerce. Right. Is there any plans to get true high-speed rail like they have in Europe, like they have in Asia? Why can't we get it in the Northeast Corridor?
Amtrak has proposed high-speed rail, and Providence has been declared one of those departure points on the high-speed rail. The issue is, one, most practically cost. It's a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, and Amtrak now is struggling with significant repair issues. We were fortunate to get some appropriations to do repairs to the Providence train station. We've done a lot of structural work there. We've improved the facade. Most of that was federal money, but it does add to not only the appeal, but also the attractiveness of the Providence station. I believe, I've been told, Providence, I think, is the 13th most used station of the 500 Amtrak stations in the country. It's probably second to South Station in terms of MBTA usage. So you're right, it's a really, really good magnet development. And the problem, though, is Amtrak has to work out all of its maintenance. And the other problem is the president's budget this year cuts Amtrak dramatically. And if we follow that path, then they'll just get worse and worse and worse rather than better and better and better.
Senator, back in 1990, nobody knew who Bill Clinton was when he ran for president, and he won. And nobody knew who Barack Obama was in 2006. Yeah. Everybody thought it would be Hillary. Yeah. And who the heck would ever think that Donald Trump would have been our president?
Right.
So we have to do something dramatic. And unfortunately, when I look at Washington, I don't see a lot of grown-ups over there. But I see one, and he's sitting at this table. Would you ever consider running for president?
No. I feel very privileged to be the senator from Rhode Island. It is a job that is meaningful to me. It allows me not only to help the state, but help the nation, and also to directly help individual Rhode Islanders. And I find it challenging, and I'm going to do my best at that job.
But it could be your calling.
No, I don't think there'll be a shortage of people with aspirations to be president of the United States. There never is. But I'm very, very happy and privileged. I feel actually honored to be able to represent Rhode Island.
Well, we're lucky to have you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Joe.
What do you think's hot?
I think what's hot is it's somewhat of our discussion about the train station, T.F. Green Airport. It's nice to be able to sit there, as I was the other night, and listen to the departure notice for a flight to Dublin. Norwegian Air has come in. We have 2 other airlines that have come in. We're flying out to Denver and beyond. And we're not done yet. The runway extension will be finished at the end of this year. That'll mean more opportunities for longer flights, particularly the West Coast. And just like the train station, the airport is an engine of economic development, not just for Warwick, but for the whole state.
It's major.
And it's really, no pun intended, taking off. When you see these airlines come in, when you see now international travel being routine, that's great for us. And it's great for business location, because just like business will ask in Providence how far the train station, national, international businesses will say, how far is it to the nearest major airport? And when you say it's 20 minutes or 15 minutes, they start being interested.
It's great. People can't, when they come in downtown, they say, how long is it going to take me to get to the airport? I said, I'll get you there in 14 minutes.
Exactly.
They love it. They can't believe it.
And, you know, you go to major cities. I was in Ohio and Cleveland. It's about a 45-minute drive way out into the outer fringes of the county till you get to the airport. Here we have one's convenient, and it's going to, I think we're beginning to see a real growth as a result of the airport. So that's one of the hot things in the state.
What's not hot?
What's not hot is cyberbullying. That's getting much worse, and you know, and it's something that is causing a lot of concern. It's part of the new technological revolution. It's the downside of it. And one of the interesting things when the beginning of the computer revolution, everything seemed to be good. ATMs and cell phones you could have and talk, and now we're seeing some of the dark side of it. And that cyberbullying is one of it. And one of the aspects, too, is that the president, I think, reflects some of this in some of his tweets, but also, I think, is sort of a reflection of it, because the public discourse has become so coarse. The language that's being used, particularly in tweets, in electronic transmissions, is lower, you know, the dialogue. We used to have a public dialogue which is much more, I think, focused on issues and rather than this type of disparaging comments.
What I think is hot is I'm glad the governor is getting the Department of Motor Vehicles line to move a lot faster, getting it computerized properly, and it seems like it's been a great success, or it's becoming a success anyways. What's not hot is if the Pawtucket Red Sox go to Worcester. And I, you know, it's funny. It's one of those things that you say, why should we do any help? And then when they leave, everybody says, well, why weren't you there to try to save it? And it's becoming one of those issues. It's become, unfortunately, a baseball team has become a political football.
No, that's actually a good analogy. And part of it, though, is you've got to be sensitive to the taxpayers, and you've got to have the kind of contract with the team and with the owners, so that you know, the liability and the future doesn't hinge on the people of Rhode Island. But you know, it's a great tradition. We both recall finally Ben Mondor, what he did from virtually nothing, turned it into a Rhode Island treasure.
You going to run for re-election?
I'm going to keep working and doing my best for people of Rhode Island.
I take that as a yes.
That's pretty good.
Okay. Senator Jack Reed, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you,
We're very proud and fortunate to have you represent us.
Thank you.
And that's our show for today. We'll see you again next week here at In the Arena.